after taking everything they need, he'll obviously leave a present for those guys. He then tells Kraut to take the men and start collecting all the crates because it's time to leave. But Kraut looks sad again about leaving the prince's side. For heaven's sake, bring back my wife you already. Calix, as you can handle it alone, and Kraut reluctantly agrees, saying he'll return soon. With that, he leaves and Calix celebrates finally having a moment to himself. And when you know it, our boy finds yet another secret passage. Inside, he discovers an item he's very familiar with from the game, though it looks very different in person. It's the bracelet of the Grand Alchemy Priest. The translation here is garbage, isn't it? And I'm translating the garbage translation. So this is peculiar. Its effect is that when you're on the brink of death, it activates a protective barrier that lasts for 2 hours. But if you take another very strong hit while the barrier is active, obviously, it breaks. The item had a cooldown period of 1 week, and after 3 activations, it would stop working. However, it was perfect for him, since at this moment, he has no combat abilities. He slips it onto his wrist, thinking that now it's as if he has 3 extra lives. But as he's about to leave, he notices one more detail. Inside the place where he picked up the item, there was something written. He tries to read it, but only understands part of it. Something about a Hecatoria or something like that. The problem is that the rest of the message is indecipherable to him. He remembers that once in the game, he heard about this name, Hecatoria. In the legends, she's the goddess who taught humans how to use magic. But he certainly didn't exist in the game. Could this be something that only belongs to this world? As he touches it with his finger, electricity begins to surge, and he feels a tremor. Suddenly, it seems like only his consciousness exists, and he asks where he is and why he can't see anything. Looking down, there's a giant eye surrounded by glow and blue shapes. He wonders if this is the domain of the divine he heard about, the so-called gods that watch over people in this world. Suddenly, he begins to rise in pain as a voice echoes in his head. It was as if the words were being forced directly into his brain. A red-haired woman's voice says that this is wrong and inhuman. But one of the energy sources replies that there were no humans there. It warns Hecatoria that the matter had already been settled by vote. She should not think of breaking the pact, but woman protests, saying it's violence and she won't agree to it. Another voice says that if she wants so badly to be human, her wish would be granted. Suddenly, she appears kneeling atop the giant eye. Calix hears a terrifying sound he can't comprehend. While Hecatoria is screaming in the middle of it all, he covers his ears because he can't bear to listen any longer. The voice is declared that Hecatoria has now fallen to the rank of a demigod. It would no longer be appropriate to call her by her old name. From now on, she would become an object of hatred, driven into miserable madness by the very insect she adored. They were eager to see the expression on her face at that moment. Suddenly, Hecatoria finds himself back in the room. I'm confused, he's confused, you're confused. This must be author's intent. Out of nowhere, the system window pops up and Hecatoria is shocked. He had obtained a fragment of Hecatoria's first authority. It appears to be a skill that deals area of effect damage to all nearby enemies. The damage scales of his level and is impossible to dodge. However, the more enemies there are, the less damage it deals overall. Calix knows that abilities normally range from rank F to rank S. But there are exceptions when it comes to so-called unique abilities. And beyond that, there are authority abilities which are even more distinct. It's a power that only X-class individuals or those known as demigods can use. In fact, developing an authority is the only way to reach the X-class. Another system window appears, stating that he has absorbed a fragment of authority. This raises the rank of his soul. Calix is now certain that the one who sent him to this world was the goddess named Hecatoria. He knows that only authority-level abilities can harm a god. Perhaps she's hoping that somehow, he'll avenge her. The lunatic starts laughing with his hand over his face, wondering if this is really going to be the final objective of this game. Obviously, he feels like he's being manipulated. But he's going to end this whether he wants to or not. At that moment, Crab returns and asks if he's done. Calyx tells him not to be surprised and Krat lifts confused. In the next scene, everything is chaotic and lively. There was so much treasure in that room that they needed more time to collect it all. Just the chests filled with coins totaled over 30,000. Our boy gets excited. It's much more than he expected. And Krat says that, in addition, there are several crates with silver bars worth about 100,000 gold coins. The only problem is that transporting so much loot with just this expedition wouldn't be easy. Calyx thinks he never imagined the biggest problem would be having too much treasure to carry. But to him, it doesn't matter how much there is, it won't be a problem. Because when he killed a goblin, he and the inventory ability. He's feeling all confident, grinning to himself, while Krat wonders about his excitement. Calyx simply tells him to bring the crates closer, he'll handle the rest. Krat asks if everything in front of him is accounted for, and the man confirms it. Calyx then tells him to prepare everyone for the return journey. Krat agrees, though he has no idea what the boy is planning. But Calyx knows that in this world, the concept of players and abilities doesn't exist. It would take too long to explain what inventory is. So instead of explaining, he'll just make it work. At that moment, Krat says everyone's outside, but asks what they're going to do with the crates. Calyx shows the bracelet and says he obtained it there. It has some space magic ability. It's an extremely rare artifact with enough room to store all the crates. Krat's eyes go wide and he asks where Calyx got something like that. Our boy simply tells him to keep quiet and keep this secret. He says that truly understanding something that valuable would be dangerous if others found out. He then says he's heading out and Krat agrees while still stunned. Calyx thanks him as he leaves. Now he needed to focus on the objective. Speaking of the inventory, the system window pops up. He wonders if it's going to be as simple as a game. He touches one of the crates and immediately it appears in the inventory as silver bars. It's as easy as he imagined and he begins loading his inventory. Man, the kids like Minecraft stacking everything in piles of 99. With all the treasure collected, it was time to return. He climbs the stairs and the men greet him, saying that everyone is ready for the journey back. But Calyx is looking around. He wants to know if Layla still has a return. Krat says no and questions whether maybe she betrayed them in flood. That's why you never trusted her from the beginning. Calyx tells him to wake up to reality. It wasn't a coincidence that the Sasquatchs flood at that exact moment during the fight. After explaining what happened, everyone looks shocked. Krat says that attacking the Sasquatch's nest alone was a suicide mission. Even though he didn't like the girl, he didn't want her to die like that. Calyx says he would have suggested sending soldiers with her. But since no one trusted her, she had to go alone on that venture. Krat realizes that not only was he wrong, but it was because of her that they survived. Krat says that if she has a return, it's because something must have happened. Thanks to her, they avoided countless sacrifices. Now it was time to help her. Everyone stands at attention. Krat says he'll follow the Lord's orders. The other knights say that if she risked her life to save everyone, they needed to help her. Meanwhile, the clueless Sermon is just thinking that everything in this mission has been trouble. At least now, as in knight, he would complete his duty. Calyx orders them to split into a squad to search for her, while the rest will hide in the ruin. He's considering two possibilities for what might have happened to Layla. Either she was pursued by the Sasquatch leader or by the organization she belongs to. At this moment, he still believes it's the Sasquatches, since no other pursuers have shown up yet. Besides, he's certain she's careful enough not to be caught in the act. The problem now is figuring out how to find her. Krat asks what they'll do next, and Calyx checks that everyone is ready. The plan for now was to head straight to the Sasquatch base and start avenging those monkeys. Before Krat can protest, Calyx places some herbs in his hands and tells him to burn them. It would produce a kind of oil that everyone should coat their weapons with. He warns Krat not to complain about the plan and Krat just agrees. Calyx looks up, telling Layla to hold on. Sometime later, they're spying on the Sasquatch's base. They're sure that only females and children are inside. Calix says they'll kill those inside first, and soon enough, the males will rush into the cave. But the men look uneasy and ask if this is really okay, since he already knows how dangerous the creatures are. Our boy tells them to see for themselves how powerful the poison on their weapons is. With that, they step forward and the Sasquatches hear something. The entire army begins advancing toward them. Once the fight begins, Calix hears others approaching. They run toward the cave, and Calix senses it's now their turn. They follow some footprints, and our boy says he's sure Layla wouldn't be defeated by those creatures. That's why it'll follow the largest footprints. Riding on Thomas' back, they start running. Along the way, Thomas asks if Calix likes the woman. He gets it. After all, she's a very attractive woman. Calix tells him to focus on the mission and stop joking around. But Thomas replies that he never imagined she would volunteer for something so dangerous.